Let's begin by offering our respects to the founder Acharya of ISKCON, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
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 Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Taruvyascha Kripa Sindhu Vya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om
Om
Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Okay, so we welcome all of you to our weekly Bhagavad classes. Thank you very much for joining us. We have with us here Auntie Neeta, Ranjit Das, Aja, Disha Melwani, Harman Bakshani, Lal and Mehak Melwani. Then we have Lavina, we have Hema, and then we have Vivansh, Bhumika, Manju, Meena Bharwani, Mehak Bakshani. We have N.C. Venkatchari, we have Rajat Sharma, Rajiv Kumar, my parents are there. Then we have Saket, Shivani, Varsha, and Venkatesh A. Okay, so what did we see in the previous class?
You said about the brahmacharya.
Yes.
The parents send their
The-
children when they are 5
The
years
difference
old.
between Ashtanga Yoga
To
and
Gurukul.
Bhakti Yoga.
Okay, wait. Vivansh, when somebody is talking, then you don't cut the person. Okay, you wait for one person to finish talking and then you can talk. Okay, Vivansh?
The difference
So
between
this-
Oh, wait.
Ashtanga Yoga and
Vivansh, can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, so when somebody else is answering a question, you wait for the person to finish and then you talk. Okay? Did you get that?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll finish with Auntie Neeta. So she was saying that at the age of 5 years, children are sent to the Gurukul. Okay, then?
Yes. So the young boys are strictly disciplined and becoming the brahmachari.
Yes. Very nice. Okay, now Vivansh, now you tell me, what were you saying?
The difference between Ashtanga Yoga and Bhakti Yoga.
What about it? Do you remember any differences?
Just that in Ashtanga Yoga, you have to leave your house, you have to live alone and go to the forest in order to do meditation. But in Bhakti Yoga, you can stay home without doing anything and you can just do yoga there, at home, anywhere, no matter what.
Yes, very
It
nice.
doesn't matter the forest, your house, outside, no matter what.
Yes, very nice. Excellent. Very good. What else did we see in the previous class? What do we know about Ashtanga Yoga process? How is it followed?
It is eightfolded steps, and the first six are yoga ruruksa stage,
Yes.
and last two are what's it? Yoga rudra stage.
Yes, very nice. Excellent. Okay. So first of all, the yogi has to leave home. He has to be completely renounced. Yes. If the mentality is not renounced, he goes to the forest, it will not work. So he has to have a renounced mentality, leave home, leave family, go to the forest. In the forest, he has to sit in an asana. His sitting position should be neither too high, neither too low. And what does he sit on? First, he has to lay kusha grass. Then he has to lay deer skin. And then a soft cloth. So then he sits on this asana, on this sitting place. And everything he has to be, his posture should be straight, no? The head, the neck, the back. It should all be in the same straight line. And then his eyes should be open or closed?
Half closed.
Half closed. So what is he looking at? What should he be staring at?
Tip of
The
the
tip of his
nose.
nose.
Yes, he should be staring at the tip of his nose. And then as he proceeds from the lower stages to the higher stages of Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyana Yoga, he raises his consciousness. And then the final stage, if he is successful, the final stage is the Samadhi stage. Samadhi stage, when he reaches the final stage, he can see the Paramatma, he can see the super soul. So this is basically the Ashtanga Yoga process that Krishna is describing in this particular chapter. Do we have any questions from the previous class?
No.
Okay. Who can read today? Okay, Vivansh. You need to read the translations, yes? Let me share my screen. And let's hear the shloka.
यदा विनियतं चित्तम् आत्मन्येवावतिष्ठते निःस्पृहः सर्वकामेभ्यो युक्त इत्युच्यते तदा.
Translation.
Translation. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga.
So here Krishna is continuing his discussion on Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. So what is Krishna saying here? That when the yogi has disciplined his mental activities. So see, Viniyatam Chittam, when his mind is disciplined. and when he is situated in transcendence, and when he is devoid of all material desires. See, nishpraha sarva kamebhyo, all the kamas, so sarva kamebhyo, all his material desires are now not existing. So he is devoid of all material desires. Then only he is well established in yoga. Then he is yukta. He is well situated in yoga. But if he is not having these qualities, if his mind is not disciplined, he is not situated at transcendence, he still has material desires, then there is no question of him being situated or well established in yoga. He cannot be in this yukta stage. So if somebody is into meat eating and then he says that he's a yogi, he's a yoga practitioner, then that is a joke. There is no question of one being a yogi if he's indulging in sinful activities, if his mind is not disciplined, if he still has material desires, then that is not possible. Let's go to 19.
Yatha deepo nivatastho nengate sopama smrita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmanah.
Translation: As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so does the transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self.
So see, in the previous shloka, Krishna spoke about disciplining the mind. And to explain that point further, here Krishna is giving an analogy. What is the analogy that he's giving? He's saying that just as how a lamp does not waver in a windless place, in the same way, a controlled mind will always remain steady. The mind will not get agitated. The mind will not get distracted. So this is, of course, the mind here is fully controlled, and all this is in the last stage, in the samadhi stage. Okay, because in the previous stages, the yogi is still working on disconnecting his senses from the externals and fully focusing on the internals, right? So that process is still going on. But when he has reached the last stage, the samadhi stage, now he remains completely steady, and the mind does not get distracted, just as how a lamp in a windless place does not waver. So going by this analogy, the chitta or the mind is compared to what?
Flame.
Yes, flame. Then the material desires are compared to what?
The wind.
The wind, yes, very nice. And the steady focus of chitta on Atma is?
To being steady in the meditation of that his mind is controlled.
Okay, that is compared to the steady flame. Okay, so this is the analogy Krishna is giving. Now these verses 20 to 23 are clubbed together.
Yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyannatmani dushyate sukhamatyantikam yattad buddhigrahyamatīndriyam veti yatra na chaivayam sthitaschalati tattvataha yam labdhva chaparam labham manyate nadhikam tataha yasmin sthito na dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate tam vidyat dukkha sanyoga viyogam yoga sanyitam.
Translation: In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by the practice of yoga. The perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to realize and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in the boundless transcendental happiness realized happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this he thinks that there is no greater day. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from the material contact.
So see this here, Krishna is describing in the stage of samadhi, or in the final stage, in the last stage, when the yogi is successful, then the mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by the practice of that yoga. So here, if one has the ability to see the self by the pure mind, and he is able to relish and rejoice in the self, so he is very, very happy, he's very, very joyous, he realizes that there is no greater happiness than this. Nothing material can give him any kind of happiness. So he comes to that realization and he's completely happy, he's very, very joyful, he's in the transcendental state of mind, and he has his mind completely under control. So of course this is the stage of perfection in Ashtanga yoga. When you reach perfection in Ashtanga yoga, when you successfully crossed all the 7 stages and you're at the 8th stage, then you are considered to be successful. But unless you do not reach the stage of samadhi, as we discussed previously, there are dangers of some distractions. For example, the byproducts of Ashtanga yoga we discussed previously is that one has a long life, one has a healthy life, and one also acquires some mystic powers or some siddhis. So what are some of the mystic powers that we have discussed previously that some yogis, the yogis in Ashtanga yoga develop as a byproduct of following Ashtanga yoga? What are some of the mystic powers? We discussed previously, right? Some of them may be able to transport themselves from one place to the other place. Then some of the other mystic powers we discussed is
Spiritual desires, like if you ask for good health, for just for a material need instead of a spiritual need.
okay, no, that doesn't no, I don't think you're on that track, Vivansh. See, some of the mystic powers are they may be able to transport themselves from one place to the other place, or they may be able to shrink themselves in size. They can make themselves very, very small. They can expand themselves and make themselves very big. Or they may be able to foretell the future. They can tell you the future. They can tell you your past. So like this, these are some of the mystic powers that the Ashtanga yogi can develop during this 8th stage yoga process as a byproduct. That is not the goal of an Ashtanga yogi. Right? Developing mystic powers is not what the Ashtanga yogi actually should want in an ideal situation. His goal is to realize the Paramatma. His goal is to see the Paramatma, isn't it? But this is given to him as a byproduct. So the danger is that one may get distracted by these mystic powers. So now if they get distracted by these mystic powers, then they will not be able to reach their goal. In the previous class, we gave the example of if somebody is driving to work and on the way he's getting distracted by something that's happening on the street, and he stops to see what is happening on the street, then his journey will be interrupted or it will be delayed. So like that, if the Ashtanga yogi gets distracted, then he is going to have to do the process all over again, because Ashtanga yoga, if your meditation is broken and you lose the focus, then the whole thing has to be done all over again, is what we were discussing. So unless one does not reach the stage of samadhi, one is not considered to be successful in Ashtanga yoga.
सनिश्चयेन योक्तव्यो योगो निर्विण्णचेतसा सङ्कल्पप्रभवान् कामान् त्यक्त्वा सर्वान् शेषतः.
Translation: One should engage from oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith, and not be diverted from the path. One should abandon, without exception, all material desires born of mental speculation, and thus control all the senses of all sides by the mind.
So Krishna is saying one should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with what? With determination and faith, and not be deviated from the path. So with determination means one requires a lot of enthusiasm. Enthusiasm should be there. And faith should be there. We have to have faith on what? Actually, one should have faith in two things. One is the process, and two is the goal. So the goal is to realize the Lord. One has to have faith in the Lord that the Lord will protect us under all circumstances. See, for an Ashtanga yogi to go to a forest and live there, it's a dangerous situation because there are wild animals, there are snakes, there are scorpions, and the Ashtanga yogi may be attacked, but he has faith that the Lord will protect me under all circumstances. So what does this Ashtanga yogi require is determination and faith. And he should not be deviated from the path. So it requires a lot of patience. In Ashtanga yoga, one needs a lot of patience because it takes time. The results are not instant. It takes time. So therefore, one has to remain focused, remain fixed up for that extended period of time. So it requires a lot of patience. So determination, so enthusiasm is required, faith in the process and faith in the goal, which is the faith in yes, this Ashtanga yoga will definitely work. That is required. And one should have a lot of patience, should not be deviated from the path. And of course, again, Krishna says that one should abandon all material desires and control the senses, which of course Krishna has been mentioning over and over and over again. Say in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives this very nice example of a sparrow. I'll just read it. This is from the purport of this particular shloka, 6.24. Prabhupada writes, as for determination, one should follow the example of the sparrow who lost her eggs in the waves of the ocean. A sparrow laid her eggs on the shore of the ocean, but the big ocean carried away the eggs on its waves. The sparrow became very upset and asked the ocean to return her eggs. The ocean did not even consider her appeal. So the sparrow decided to dry up the ocean. She began to pick out the water in her small beak, and everyone laughed at her for her impossible determination. The news of her activity spread, and at last Garuda, the gigantic bird carrier of Lord Vishnu, heard it. He became compassionate toward his small sister bird, and so he came to see the sparrow. Garuda was very pleased by the determination of the small sparrow, and he promised to help. Thus Garuda at once asked the ocean to return her eggs, lest he himself take up the work of the sparrow. The ocean was frightened at this and returned the eggs. Thus the sparrow became happy by the grace of Garuda. So see, from this story of the sparrow, we see how the sparrow had determination, enthusiasm, had patience, and also did not get distracted. So even in Bhakti Yoga, actually in any yoga process, this is very important, to have faith and to have determination. One has to be determined, not give up. Don't get distracted from your services. Don't get distracted from your yoga process. And also one has to have faith in the Lord and faith in the process. So this is good for Ashtanga yoga and for any other yoga system. See, when we take to any yoga system, when we take to Bhakti yoga or any yoga system, actually what we are doing is, especially in Bhakti yoga, what we are doing is we are openly declaring a war against Maya. And we are in her domain. This material world is Maya's domain, isn't it? This material world is compared to a fort, and the fortress is Durga. That's what the name, say, fort in Hindi is called Durg, right? Durg means fort, and she is a fortress of this material world. That's why her name is Durga. So that's the service that is allotted to Durga Devi. to test the sincerity of the conditioned souls. So she is going to come up with distractions. She is going to come up with all kinds of tricks, and she's going to play with our minds. She's going to bring many things to our mind so that we give up our services. But we have to, as Krishna here says, we need determination and we need to have faith in the process as well as in the Lord. So when we have these two things, then we can succeed nicely in our spiritual life. 25.
मनसैवेन्द्रियग्रामम् विनियम्य समं ततः शनैः शनैरुपरमेत् बुद्ध्या धृतिगृहीतया.
Translation. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should be thinking of nothing else.
So gradually, step by step. So again, it takes time. It takes time. There is no instant success. There is no shortcut. It takes time. So therefore, Krishna is saying gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance. So because it takes time, one has to use one's intelligence, and one has to be one has to be fully convinced of the process. How can one be fully convinced? By the help of the Shastra or Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. When you see somebody else has done this experiment before me and you do the same experiment, then you know that this experiment will definitely work because people before me have done an experiment, isn't it? In the same way, one sees from others' experience that yes, there are yogis who have done this process before me and they have attained success. So like that, one has to be convinced by Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Also, if one has faith in Shastra, that yes, whatever Shastra says is definitely true, it will definitely work. There is no process of failure. If you do the experiment correctly, then there is no question of failure. So Krishna is saying that gradually, step by step, and you have to be fully convinced, use your intelligence, and then the mind will be fixed on the self alone and think of nothing else. So this is all the advanced stage. The last stage is the Samadhi stage of Ashtanga Yoga that Krishna is describing in these verses. 24 also, he mentioned some qualities, and 25, he has mentioned 3 more qualities to be more precise. 26.
आत्मसंस्थं मनः कृत्वा न किञ्चिदपि चिन्तयेत् यतो यतो निश्चलति मनश्चञ्चलमस्थिरम्.
Translation. From wherever the mind wanders to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self.
So when the mind wanders due to flickering and unsteady nature, see, there are 3 adjectives that Krishna has used in this verse to describe the mind. He uses the word nishchalati. Nishchalati means? You can see the synonyms and answer.
Yeah, becomes very agitated.
Aha, nishchalati means it becomes agitated. Then he uses the word chanchalam. Chanchalam means? Flickering. And asthiram. Asthiram means?
Unsteady.
Unsteady. So Krishna is using 3 adjectives to describe the mind here. It is nishchalati, chanchalam and asthiram. Therefore, one has to withdraw it and bring it back. So see, the mind is something that will wander, waver, go away. But you have to bring it back. The moment, see, when we do japa also, we are chanting and sometimes the thoughts may go to something else that has nothing to do with the japa. But the moment you realize that the mind is wandering, you bring the mind back. You bring it back. And then again, you say, okay, I have to focus on the chanting of the holy name. So this is the way you bring it back. As soon as you see that the mind has begun to wander, you bring it back and bring it under the control of the self. So we have to control our minds and not allow the minds to control us. The majority of the human population allows the mind to control them. But Vedic system, Bhagavad Gita teaches us that we have to control the mind and not vice versa. So see, here are the three adjectives that Krishna uses to describe the mind. The mind on autopilot leads us to destruction, not destination. So Krishna said that we have to bring one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control. So withdraw the mind and bring it back under the control, because by nature the mind is going to wander. So see, when the plane is cruising and everything is fine, then the pilot may put the plane on the autopilot mode. The pilot is not directly in control of the plane, because the plane is cruising and it is on autopilot mode. So like that, we can also put our mind on autopilot mode when there is no disturbance. For example, things that are a routine. No, we wake up in the morning, we brush our teeth, we have our bath, then the children that get dressed, they go to school, or somebody has to go to work. Those who are devotees, they will chant their japa before they go to work, like that. So like that, for these routine activities, the mind is put on autopilot mode. But the moment we see that the mind is distracting us, the mind is taking us on the wrong path, the mind is telling us to engage in sense gratificatory activities, then we take control of the mind. Just as how if the plane that is cruising smoothly now generates some disturbance, there is some disturbance in the plane, then the pilot will take control of the plane. Now he wants to personally ride the plane. So like that, we can put the mind on autopilot for our daily routine activities until and unless the mind is not distracting us. Just as how the pilot may put the plane on autopilot mode until the plane is cruising. Yeah, we have a hand raised. iPhone 5. Tell me. Oh, Pooja.
Hi,
Okay.
Sanam. I don't know why my phone shows you all these funny things, but well, I have a question regarding this. I agree with you that many a times the mind is on autopilot, but I think to realize that your mind is on autopilot is also a stage, because many times you don't realize that your thoughts are taking you somewhere. So I think that is a progress, because you realize that your mind is on autopilot. But many times, how to bring back the mind? Because sometimes when you resist something, like I have seen, I have read, and sometimes when you resist something, it happens more. Like you realize that your mind is on autopilot, and you realize that you are in control, and then you're fighting against it, and then it stays more. I know this is a very big question. I know that with japa or praying or whatever, but sometimes, like, how do you bring it back? Like, sometimes when you're pushing against it, it's staying more. How do you bring it back?
Yeah, so see, one is, first of all, we have to be very conscious. When we have to be attentive. See, when we chant, for example, we have to hear what we chant, because when we hear what we chant, then we are paying attention to the sound vibration that we are emitting when we chant loudly. That sound vibration is entering our ears, and when we pay attention to what we are hearing, then we will control the mind from wandering away. So when we are conscious of what we are hearing, when we pay attention, when we do attentive chanting, then it's easier to realize, and one can realize faster also that the mind has started to wander. Okay, so first thing is attentive chanting. We have to hear. Prabhupada said that when you hear what you chant, then automatically your mind is under control. And other things are our daily habits, our food habits, what we eat. If we eat prasad, we eat sattvic food, we eat foods that do not agitate the mind. Then that will also help to prevent the mind from wandering. And it will also reduce the frequency of the mind wandering. That's why we pay a lot of attention to eating sattvic food. Actually, not even only sattvic food, but prasad, what we offer to the Lord, because that is transcendental. So, and also our association, what kind of people are we associating with? Satsanga or association with devotees, our friend circle, that also goes a long way in determining our mindset. See, now let's say one is listening to a Bollywood song. What happens when we hear that Bollywood song 2 or 3 times? It it starts playing on our mind, and we start to hum that song even unknowingly, isn't it? Because that sound vibration has entered our ears and has entered our consciousness. But when we associate with devotees, when we hear lectures from bona fide authorities, then that will enter our consciousness, and that is what we will be thinking about. That is what we are going to be contemplating on. So our devotee association and our habits, what we eat, how we regulate our eating, sleeping, all that also goes a long way in controlling our mind. You know, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a conversation between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai. That time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells Ramananda Rai that what is the most precious thing. And that time, Ramananda Rai says that the only precious thing is association of devotees. That's the only precious thing. Why? Because when we associate with devotees, then everything else automatically comes. You're associating with devotees, automatically you take to japa, automatically you give up bad habits because you're associating with those kind of people. So satsanga or devotee association also is very, very crucial in our lives in order to focus and prevent the mind from wandering.
Okay, so would you say like prevention and content is 90% of the battle, I mean, against the mind?
Yes, definitely. How we associate and the people with whom we associate and our habits, our regulating, if we regulate our eating, sleeping, all that, your battle is won just by that. Everything else then automatically comes as a byproduct. We don't have to artificially endeavor to control the mind. It comes automatically when we have the right association and when we regulate our habits.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. You know, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita again, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes 64 items of devotional service. And out of that 64, then he picks his top 5. What are the top 5 items of devotional service? He says Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtan, Bhagavad Shravan, Mathuravas, and Shraddhaya Murtira Sevaya. These are the top 5 items of devotional
What is Mathuraya Vyas?
Yeah, I'll tell you. Sadhu Sangha. First he says Sadhu Sangha, association of devotees. Then he says Nama Kirtan, which is chanting of the holy name. Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtan, Mathuravas means to reside in a holy place. So one may say that we are residing out of India or one is not residing in a holy place, but we can make our homes also a holy place by the correct practices. Any home where the Lord is worshipped is a temple. Then he says, Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtan, Mathuravas, Shraddhaya, Murtira, Sevaya, that is worshipping the deity with faith. So these 5 items that he mentions, but he mentions, what is notable is that he mentions Sadhu Sangha even before he mentions chanting of the holy name. Sadhu Sangha, then he says Nama Kirtan. So the right association is very, very crucial in our spiritual life. What kind of people are we associating with?
Okay.
So Lal, you have your hand raised. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, it's just the same question, the continuation of the same question. You say the diet and the association, isn't it?
Yes.
What about thinking, overthinking, fear?
Yeah, thinking, overthinking, fear, everything is taken care of if you have the right diet. See, the diet, the regulate, when you see previous class, Krishna spoke about regulating the habits, eating and sleeping. We discussed how we should not sleep more than 6 hours, otherwise it's in the mode of ignorance. Why we don't eat onion and garlic is because it ignites, it agitates the mind. It ignites passion. It agitates the mind. That's why onion and garlic is never used in any prasad, because it agitates the mind. It is not sattvic. The Lord will not accept it. So when you have all those qualities that you mentioned, overthinking and all that is coming under mind control only.
Yeah, but like for instance, I mean, overthinking, fear. There's so many fears also that makes your mind, distracted in many things. Maybe I'm sitting in satsang, but I have something that's going in my mind. It's nothing to do with the people whom I'm associated or something, some type of fear or something like that. But automatically my mind keeps on thinking about that, and how I bring my mind when I'm having some type of many things like these type of things.
Yeah, same thing. Fear. Why does one have fear? Now let's take the example of Prahalad. Now, Prahalad, they tried to kill him in so many different ways, but Prahalad was completely fearless because he had complete faith in the Lord. So, fearlessness comes when you have complete faith in the Lord. When we fear something, is because we are lacking the faith. So, when we practice abhyasa, when you practice something day in and day out, then with that, even fearlessness will come. Fearlessness will also come by constant practice. Complete fearlessness is possible only in Krishna consciousness. We saw that statement. Let me go there. In the previous class, we saw.
Okay.
See here, when we saw the difference between Ashtanga Yoga and Krishna consciousness, we have seen the statement. Full Krishna consciousness is the only basis of fearlessness. Just like how Prahlad, a devotee is completely fearless because a devotee has complete faith that the Lord will protect him under all circumstances. What does a devotee have to fear? The devotee has nothing to fear because the Lord will protect him under every circumstances. He has nothing to lose. What does a devotee have to lose? A devotee knows that all that I possess actually does not belong to me. It only belongs to Krishna. Remember the peace formula? Everything belongs to Krishna. So what does a devotee have to lose? What he does in his bhakti yoga process is not going to go waste. Even if he's unsuccessful in this lifetime, he carries on from where he left off in the previous lifetime. The possessions that he has, he knows that it does not belong to me. Even the one may fear the loss of his family members, the loss of his loved ones, but a devotee understands that we are all spirit souls. We may have a wife or some children in this lifetime, but we have had millions of wives, millions of husbands, millions of children in the past, millions of lifetimes, isn't it? So a devotee understands all this, that we are all spirit souls. My wife, my husband, my children, we are all actually spirit souls, and everyone is a servant of Krishna. So a devotee, what does a devotee fear to lose?
Okay. Anyway, it convinces me, but still, it's like, of course, like you mean to say that you have to just leave it on God, do it right, and leave it on God, and that's what you mean to say, and that's it, isn't it?
Yes, but that is theoretical. No, now how will you put it into practice? That leave it on God, we can say, but what are we going to actually do to come to that stage where we don't fear anything? For that, we need abhyasa, practice, constant practice. If you do this experiment just for 1 month, you eat only prasad. 1 whole month, you eat only prasad, and you associate with devotees. Don't associate with non-devotees for 1 month. You do the experiment, you will see for yourself. You will see the results for yourself. It makes a lot of difference.
Okay, I will bring in practice many things. Thanks a lot, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, we have more hands raised, or so Pooja.
Yeah, I
hands
just
raised.
wanted to, I just wanted to add to that, I mean, I understand you and I know it makes a lot of sense. And, sometimes it's the application. It's also like at that moment, I mean, even if you're aware and you are on a prayer path and you realize all these things, sometimes at that moment, I think you get caught up in emotion. So at that moment, to realize that it's your emotion and to have a bigger perspective, how do you do it at that moment?
So by using our intelligence, Krishna says that higher than the mind is the intelligence. So higher than the mind is the intelligence. So when our mind is taking us through this emotional ups and downs, then we use our intelligence. So what is intelligence? Intelligence comes from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. If one has developed his intelligence by the instructions of the spiritual master, by reading the Shastra, then one realizes, okay, let me give a crude example. Now let's say when we go to bed, there are a lot of dirty vessels in the kitchen. The mind will say, I will wash these vessels in the morning. I don't want to wash them now. That's what the mind is going to say. Just let it be. It's okay. Doesn't matter. What difference does it make? But then we use our intelligence, because intelligence is higher than the mind. We say no, but tomorrow morning also, it's me who has to wash these vessels. So and might as well wash it now, so that I can enter a clean kitchen in the morning and prepare breakfast for my family. So using your intelligence, we can conquer the mind. That intelligence comes from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra.
So it's all related. It's all your habits. It's all like you do these things every single day, day in and day out. So even if you're faced in a situation, your intelligence will take over.
Yes, we have to allow the intelligence to take over the mind. Correct.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So the mind may stray away, right? The mind may stray away, but let it not stay away. That's what Krishna is saying. Krishna is saying that, yes, the mind will wander. Yes, the mind is flickering. The mind is unsteady by nature, but you have to bring it back. Bring it back, Krishna says. So, yes, it is going to stray away, but let it not stay away. We bring it back. As soon as we realize that, okay, the mind is straying away, we bring it back by using our intelligence. Because intelligence, just what we were discussing, intelligence is higher than the mind. So the thoughts are in our mind. But because intelligence is higher than the mind, we allow the intelligence to lead the mind. So with intelligence, we can bring the mind back. 27.
ततस्ततो नियम्येत आत्मन्येव वशं नये प्रशान्तमनसं ह्येनं योगिनं सुखमुत्तमम् उपैति शान्तरजसं ब्रह्मभूतमकल्मषम् युञ्जन्येवं सदात्मानं
I think 1 second, I overstepped.
The yogis translation. The yogis whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is free from all reaction to past deeds.
So here Krishna is describing the Brahma Bhuta platform. What is this Brahma Bhuta platform? Now the yogi, he has attained the highest perfection. As we already discussed, he is now in the Samadhi stage. He is beyond the mode of passion. So he is now situated in the mode of goodness. He has crossed the mode of ignorance and passion. He is now situated in the mode of goodness. And he realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme. So he realizes that he is equal to God in quality. Quality means he is Sat. The Lord is also Sat. He is eternal. The Lord is also eternal. He is Chit. The Lord is also Chit, which is full of intelligence. Okay. He is fully intelligent. And Ananda. He is Ananda. The Lord is also Ananda, which means both the soul and the Lord, both the living entity and the Lord experience Ananda, ever increasing bliss. They don't just experience bliss, but that bliss also is ever increasing. So they are both experiencing ever increasing bliss. So equal to God in quality means the living entity realizes that he is Satchitananda and the Lord also is Satchitananda. But we must always remember that although we are equal to the Lord in quality, we are not equal to the Lord in quantity. So we may have some power, some potency, but we do not have the same potency as God, because God, there can be only one. Right? We can have only one God. Nobody can become God. Eternally, our situation is that we are eternally the servants of the Lord. So we are the same in quality, but not the same in quantity. So this person here, this yogi, who has attained the highest transcendental happiness, he is now situated in the mode of goodness, and he realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme. And also he is freed from all the reactions to the past deeds. So all his past karma, everything forgiven, everything is written off, everything gone. So we have a question in the chat. Can we attain transcendental state when we are subject to relations? Or we need only one relation, that is with God and nobody else? So when it comes to relations, if you're talking about family members, then we have some duties. We have prescribed duties. So we have to fulfill our prescribed duties to our family members. We have children. We may have dependents who are depending on us. So we have to fulfill our prescribed duties to our children, to our family members, to anyone who's dependent on us. But and it's okay to love our children, in the sense that it's only natural that one experiences some love for the children or love for family members. But we must remember that that love for the child or family member should not supersede the love we have for the Lord, because the love for the Lord should be at on our priority list. It should be at number one position, and then everything else follows. Because when we are on our deathbed, that which will come to our mind by default is that person whom we are most attached to, or the person we love the most, and that person has to be God. Otherwise, if we are not in God consciousness, if we are not in Krishna consciousness at time of death, and we are thinking of our wife or our children, then we are going to have to come back again. Love for family brings fear. So fear is only when you are materially attached, only then there is any question of fear. Fearlessness, if you are in Krishna consciousness, then there is no question of fear. Does that answer your question, Rajat? Okay.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, can I ask you one question?
Yes, Shivani.
Mataji, just now, as you said, that at the time of death, we will think of the person that we are most attached to. So now being in this material world now, before death comes, how can we find out who are we most attached to and detach slowly? Because there's so many people in our lives, so many things. How can one do that?
So how to know you? I mean, you would know your emotions, isn't it? What is it that I mean, you would know your emotions. Where are your emotions leading to? If you have a choice between, I mean, one just knows for whom one's emotions are, for the Lord or for the children or for your family. One just knows. And how to develop it is, again, by constant practice, abhyasa. Day in and day out, we just do our chanting, we do our japa, we do our prescribed duties, we follow the four regulatory principles, we read the Shastra. So when by constant practice, it will come. Does that answer your question?
Mataji, can I add to this?
Yes.
Whatever the thoughts in the mind are playing, that's who we are attached to. What are the actions that we are more doing? That's who we are more attached to. Our actions and our thought process gives us the attachment towards that living being or towards that subject object.
Okay, yes, that is correct. Our actions and our thought process, but one may end up spending more time with your children than you are spending. See, one spends 2 hours in japa, but one may spend 8 to 10 hours serving the child. So how, I mean, because we have to do our prescribed duties, because a mother has to take care of a child, especially if the child is young, is a newborn, then we spend so many hours taking care of that newborn child. So then how are you going to judge? So again, we have to understand that we have to do our prescribed duty. So, I mean, I cannot sit with my japa mala and do my japa and leave my newborn child crying because I have to do my japa and I love the Lord more, but my child, because I'm not, no, we have to do our prescribed. Maybe we have to spend more hours with doing our prescribed duties to somebody else. How do we know is, I would say, when you do that which pleases Krishna, that which pleases the Lord. We just ask the simple question, by my doing this, is the Lord pleased? For example, me taking care of my family, my husband, my children, is the Lord pleased? The answer is yes, because Krishna wants us to do our prescribed duties. Yes. Or if somebody has...
She's asking how her mind can get away from the attachment so she can attach to Krishna. If she's attached to some sense object or some human being, and during the day and at the end of her life, that practice will come automatically. So she wants to know, like, how she can detach herself from, how can she know that who she's attached to? Second, how can she practice detachment so she can think about Krishna, so she can go back to Godhead in this?
See, emotions
Okay.
we have for everyone. Emotions we have for the husband, for the mother, for the father, for sister, brother, kids. But I want to find out who I have more emotions for so I can detach myself.
So who do
That's
you
very
call
hard to
out?
find
Who
out.
do you think of when you're in trouble? When you're in a crunch situation? Who do
Krishna,
you call out?
like Krishna.
So then you're most attached to Krishna. If
So we
let's say
have to balance the
let's say
life.
you're driving and somebody cuts you off, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? What's the first word that comes on your mouth?
I'll get upset. When,
So
Yeah.
that can see when we are in a crunch situation. Let's say one is in an emergency situation. See, usually the children, the first thing that comes to their mouth is they call out to their mom, because children are most attached to their mothers. No, because the first thing that comes to our mouth, the first name that comes to our mind in a crunch situation, an emergency situation, is that person whom you are most attached to. Just like when Ajamila was on his deathbed, the first name that came to his mind was his son, who was called Narayan, but it was his son whom he called out to. So in a crunch situation, that name that comes to your mouth first, that determines what is actually in your consciousness, whom you are most attached to.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Very well said.
Thank you. Okay, so we have to do the next shloka. 28.
प्रशान्तमनसं ह्येनं
Did we do 27?
Yes, we finished.
Yes, we just finished it.
Okay. Somehow my verse here has skipped. 1 second.
आत्मानं प्रशान्तमनसं ह्येनं
This is 27. We have to
योगिनं
wait for 28.
सुखमुत्तमम् उपैति शान्तरजसं ब्रह्मभूतमकल्मषम्
Okay, now 28.
युञ्जन्येवं सदात्मानं योगी विगतकल्मषः सुखेन ब्रह्म संस्पर्शम् अत्यन्तं सुखमश्नुते.
Translation. Thus, the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness, the transcendental loving service to the Lord.
Okay, so here in 27, Krishna described the Brahma Bhuta stage, where one is realizing the Brahman effulgence. And here he's talking about the Brahma Samsparsham stage. Or here one is realizing the Paramatma, or Paramatma realization. So Brahma Samsparsham means here, let's see, where is it in the synonyms? Yeah, Brahma Samsparsha means being in constant touch with the Supreme. So this stage is one step higher than the Brahma Bhuta stage. So what is Krishna saying here? The self-control yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness. So highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. So here, he recognizes that his constitutional position is what? What is the constitutional position of every living entity? The constitutional position of every living entity is to render loving, devotional service to the Lord. Why do we say loving service? Is because service means it has to be rendered with love. If somebody is doing a service not out of love, but out of something else, for example, one may have a cook in the house, or one may have a maid in the house, or one may have somebody who's working an employee. He is also rendering service, but this person is rendering service because he is receiving a salary. He is not necessarily doing it with love. So when one renders service with love, not because he is receiving a remuneration or because he has some other ulterior motive, right? Seva means it has to be rendered with love. So that's the relationship between the Lord and his devotees. The devotees render service to the Lord out of love, not because they are expecting something in return. That is pure love. That is pure seva. So this person here, he realizes his identity is what? That he is part and parcel of the Supreme. So the constitutional position is to render loving devotional service to the Lord. And this is called as the Brahma Samparsha stage, the contact with the Supreme. See, happiness, because here Krishna is talking about achieving perfect happiness. So one may say that, but I can also be happy when I get a nice palatial building, or when I can fulfill my dream of whatever one's dream may be, materialistic. But the point is, spiritual happiness, with time it only increases. We described how one experiences ever increasing bliss. But material happiness, with the passage of time, it only reduces. One may be very happy having this nice palatial house, but only for some period of time. That happiness is going to last. Very soon there is another desire in the house, in the mind, that I want to have an even bigger palatial building. I want to have a 7-story building, or I want to compete with my neighbor. So material happiness is something that will give you happiness only for some time, but it is not going to always last. But spiritual happiness is something that with period of time, it only increases. Even in the spiritual world also, everything is very, very blissful, and the bliss there is ever increasing. Can you imagine ever increasing bliss? Already you are perfectly happy, very, very blissful, but even that bliss is ever increasing. That's how spiritual happiness is. See, material happiness, Krishna describes in the 18th chapter, that it is like nectar in the beginning, but poison later. Initially, it will give you some happiness. It is nectar in the beginning, but later it will only bring anxiety. It's like poison later. Sometimes we have children, we are very happy that, we have a child, we have a daughter, we have a son, and one is very happy when the child is born to us. But as the children grow later, then they're into adolescence, and then they grow older, then we see that some children give pain to the parents, isn't it? Not all children are going to give joy and bliss to the parents. So like that, material happiness is nectar in the beginning, but poison later. But spiritual happiness may appear to be poison in the beginning, because one has to follow rules and regulations. One has to take the time out to render services. One has to do the japa. One has to spend 2 hours every day. So it may appear like poison in the beginning, but later it will give you only nectar. Once you can cross that initial stage of challenges and opposition, sometimes the family members are not in support of you, the people around you are not in support of you, people make fun of you because you're following a spiritual life. When one follows spirituality, people make fun of, they say, oh, just enjoy life, what is all this for? Let it be, just enjoy life, look how I am enjoying. So it may appear like poison in the beginning. One has to face so many challenges, but later it is only nectar, because now you can get realizations. The law, you can see for yourself that the experiment actually works. 29.
Sarvabhutasthamatmanam sarvabhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshanaha.
Translation. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere.
So now that the yogi, this Ashtanga yogi, has attained perfection and he can realize the Paramatma, what does he see? Now he observes me in all beings. So Krishna is saying that this person now, he can observe me in all the beings. So he sees that this same Paramatma who is in me, that same Paramatma is there in all the living entities. He is there in the heart of the tiny ant. He is in the heart of the trees. He is in the heart of the aquatics, the animals, the birds, even up to Lord Brahma. So Krishna is present as the super soul, as the Paramatma, even in the body of Lord Brahma and all the Devatas, Indra or Surya or Chandra or Varuna or any of these Devatas. He is present as the super soul in the heart of all the living entities. So this true yogi, now he observes. And Krishna is saying he observes me in all beings. So again, Krishna is saying that Paramatma who is in our heart is none other than Krishna himself. Krishna himself is declaring that. No other Devata has declared this, what Krishna is declaring. So this yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. So he sees also that all these living entities are parts and parcels of Krishna. So he's seeing the same Supreme Lord everywhere, Krishna is saying. Again, he uses the word Sammadarshana, which we saw in chapter 5. He sees everyone equally. So he sees, we saw in chapter 5 now how Transcendentalist sees the dog eater, the Brahmana. He sees everyone with an equal vision. So the same vision is there for the Ashtanga Yogi in the last stage. Here. 30.
यो मां पश्यति सर्वत्र सर्वं च मयि पश्यति तस्याहं न प्रणश्यामि स च मे न प्रणश्यति.
For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost.
So one who has that vision. See, previously Krishna spoke about that vision of how the Ashtanga Yogi sees the Paramatma and all the living entities and sees all the living entities in Krishna. So what is the benefit of having that vision? Krishna is explaining in this verse. So one who has that vision, for him, he is never lost, nor is he ever lost to me, which means the Ashtanga Yogi now does not fall down. Once the Ashtanga Yogi reaches the last stage, now there is no chance or no question of any fall down, because now he has attained success. 31.
सर्वभूतस्थितं यो मां भजत्येकत्वमास्थितः सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि स योगी मयि वर्तते.
Translation: Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that I am and the Supersoul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances.
So now that the yogi has attained success and he has seen the Paramatma, now there is progression. Now what is the next stage? Automatically now he engages in the service of the super soul. Now he wants to render seva. Now he engages in worshipful service of the super soul. Now he realizes that I and the super soul are one. So now he realizes that Krishna and the super soul are the same personality. So now there is progression. Now he wants to serve the Lord. Because the Ashtanga Yogi, he was in the forest, he was doing his dhyana and he has raised his consciousness and now he has seen the super soul. Now he wants to render worshipful service. So there is progression for this Ashtanga Yogi.
आत्मौपम्येन सर्वत्र समं पश्यति अर्जुन सुखं वा यदि वा दुःखं स योगी परमो मतः.
Translation: He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings, in both of their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna.
So now this Ashtanga Yogi is in perfect happiness. I mean, he sees the true equality of all beings in happiness and in distress. So again, the same concept of Sammadarshina, how he sees, because he's seeing the same super soul, the same Krishna in the heart of all the living entities, he sees the true equality of all the beings. So now there is no distinction based on caste, based on nationality, based on gender. There are no distinctions. He sees that the same super soul who's present in the man's body or the woman's body, in the body of a poor man, poor woman, American, Indian, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, it does not matter. The same super soul is there. So he sees everyone as equal, true equality of all the beings, both in happiness and in distress. So true happiness is when we connect to the Lord. And distress is when we forget our relationship with the Lord. When we forget our relationship with the Lord, then there is distress. Just as how if a small child is separated from the father, let's say the father is very rich, very opulent, and he takes very good care of his son, he sponsors his education, he takes care of all his necessities, but for some reason the child is lost. Now the child does not remember that actually he's the son of this rich man, and he's wandering from here and there, living by begging, and he's not able to go to school. So there is distress for the child. The moment the child is reunited with his lost father, then all his distress will go. So our distress is because we have forgotten our relationship with God, our Father. Let's see the next section, only 3 verses. After Arjuna hears all this description of Ashtanga Yoga, now Arjuna is going to speak. Let's see what Arjuna has to say about Ashtanga Yoga.
Arjuna uvacha yoyam yogastvaya proktaha samyena madhusudana etasyaham na pashyami chanchalatvat sthitim sthiram.
Translation. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unadorable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady.
So what is Arjuna's opinion of Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyana Yoga? What does Arjuna say?
It is impractical.
Impractical.
Impractical. So Arjuna is finding Dhyana Yoga to be impractical and
Unadorable.
unendurable. Why?
Because his mind is restless and unsteady.
Because the mind is restless and unsteady. So Arjuna says that this Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyana Yoga process is impractical and unendurable because the mind is restless and unsteady. So Arjuna is not so much in favor, or he doesn't think much about this Ashtanga Yoga system. And this was 5,000 years ago. And this is Arjuna, who's a pure devotee. It's Arjuna who is a personal associate of Lord Krishna himself. So can you imagine the state of somebody who's in Kali Yoga? Let's see what happens next.
Chanchalam himanah Krishna pramati balavadridham tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram.
Translation. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think it's more difficult than controlling the wind.
So here Arjuna is saying that the mind is chanchalam. Chanchalam means?
Doesn't stay in one place. It's always moving, going on.
Yes. Then he says that it is pramati. Pramati means?
Agitating.
Agitating. Then he says it's balavat.
Strong.
Strong. And dridham. Dridham means?
Obstinate.
Very, very obstinate. The soul mind is very obstinate, very strong, agitating and flickering. So therefore, Arjuna is saying that to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. So Arjuna is saying that it's easier to control the wind also, but it's not possible to control the mind because the mind is chanchalam, pramati, balavat and dridham. So here in the pulpit, Srila Prabhupada gives this analogy. He is comparing the individual soul to the passenger of the chariot. So the body is the chariot. The body of the individual soul is the chariot. The intelligence is the driver. So the individual soul is the passenger. See here, this is the individual soul who is the passenger on this chariot on the chariot of the body. Intelligence is the driver. So this driver here can control the body by pulling the reins, isn't it? So the mind needs to be controlled by using the intelligence. So the intelligence here is the driver. So the mind is the driving instrument and the senses are the horses. So the horses or the mind can be brought under control by using the reins, the driving instrument, and that driving instrument is in the hands of the driver. That is the intelligence. So again, this verse in chapter 3, the working senses are superior to dull matter, Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And the soul is even higher than the intelligence. So who is the highest in this hierarchy? That's given here. The soul. What is higher than the soul?
The Supreme Lord.
Higher than the soul is the super soul. Higher than the Atma is the Paramatma. So we can control the chariot of the mind by using our intelligence. Now let us see what Krishna has to say about what Arjuna has to say.
Sri Bhagavanuvacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Manodurnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihyate.
Translation. Lord Shri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possibly by suitable practice and by detachment.
So does Krishna agree to Arjuna's analysis of Ashtanga Yoga?
Yes,
Yes. How can you say that? What does Krishna say?
because he's saying that, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it's undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it's possible by suitable practice and by detachment.
Okay, so yes, Krishna has agreed to the analysis of Arjuna. He's saying that yes, it's true. It is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind. But then again, Krishna says it is possible by what? By suitable practice and detachment, by abhyasa and vairagya. See here, abhyasa and vairagya. So abhyasa means practice. Practice. When somebody wants to become a sportsman, let's say somebody wants to become a basketball player, he spends hours and hours and hours trying to get the ball into the net, isn't it? So by practice, day in and day out. So by suitable practice and by detachment, by vairagya, Krishna says, you can control the mind. So here Krishna is answering the question, how to control the mind? By abhyasa and vairagya, by practice and by detachment. See, when we are sick and we go to the doctor, so what will the doctor says? He will prescribe from medicines, and he will also say you need to control your diet. So there are certain foods that he's going to restrict us from eating for a certain period of time, depending on how serious the disease is. Okay, so abhyasa is compared to the taking the treatment itself, and vairagya, detachment, is staying away from attachment. So that vairagya is staying away from the improper diets, the improper food. So here in this analogy, the diseased patient is the mad mind. If we want to control the mind, we need a doctor, we need an expert doctor. That expert doctor is the spiritual master. With the help of the spiritual master, he gives us training, he teaches us, and he gives us a proper treatment. What is the proper treatment? Is to practice the yoga system. So in Bhakti Yoga, there are 9 items of Bhakti, which we discussed previously: Shravanam, Kirtam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, and Atma Nivedanam. In the previous class, we discussed the 9. And Shravanam is the foremost, hearing. When we chant the holy name, we automatically hear that sound vibration. When we hear that sound vibration with attention, then we prevent the mind from wandering away. Okay, so that expert treatment is the practice, abhyasa. And an appropriate diet is detachment, eating food offered to Krishna. So with this, we can control the mind, Krishna is saying. The last verse for the day, and then we will wind up today's class.
Asanyatatmana yogo dushprapa iti me matihi vashyatmana tu yatata shakyo vaptumupayatah.
Translation. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is the usher of success. That is my opinion.
So Krishna is saying that if your mind is controlled, then self-realization is possible. If your mind is not controlled, then self-realization is difficult work. So there is no question of attaining self-realization if we do not do abhyasa and we do not do vairagya. If we do not follow, we do not practice, we do not practice regularly and if we do not have our diet control or our restrictions, then there is no question of any self-realization. Okay, somebody is eating meat, engaging in drinking, intoxication, illicit relationships, and he's following a yoga system. That is a joke. That is a joke. It's not going to happen. With meat in your stomach, you cannot attain self-realization. Then Krishna says, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means. So these appropriate means Krishna has mentioned in the previous verse. What is that? Abhyasa and Vairagya. Then that person is assured of success, Krishna says. This is my opinion, Krishna says. So just to understand the flow of the chapter, Krishna is describing Ashtanga Yoga in detail. And then Arjuna said that I think that this is highly impractical and unendurable because the mind cannot be controlled. And then Krishna says, yes, you're correct. The mind is very difficult to be controlled, but the mind can be controlled by two factors. What are they? Abhyasa and Vairagya, practice and detachment. And then Krishna says, if one follows these two means, then one can be assured of success, Krishna is saying. So now in the next class, we will see what Arjuna has to say next. Okay, what is Arjuna's reply to what Krishna has just spoken? We will see that in the next class if Krishna so sanctions. But before that, coming back to this verse 36, Srila Prabhupada explains the purport that trying to practice yoga while engaging the mind in material enjoyment is like trying to ignite a fire while pouring water on it. So you cannot ignite a fire and then simultaneously you're pouring water on it. The two things do not go hand in hand. So therefore, similarly, yoga practice without mental control is a waste of time. It's a waste of time. On that note, we will end today's class. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Mataji, can I ask you one question?
Yes.
Can you go to 634, verse 34? I think it was 34, where you were talking about mind.
Yeah.
I think it's so. Sometimes when you have thoughts, like before coming to Krishna consciousness, when you have thoughts in your mind, like, okay, somebody did something to you, and your mind starts thinking, okay, what was the motive, or why did this person do this to me? So is that we thinking, or is that the mind playing those games or putting those thoughts in her? Like, is that totally mind, or that is us?
No, so that is not us, because we are the spirit souls. We are not the body. And mind is a part of the subtle body. So we have the gross body and the subtle body. The mind is a part of the subtle body. We are not the body. We are not the gross body, nor are we the subtle body. So when these thoughts come to our mind, it's not us, it's the mind. So one makes that distinction.
Okay.
It's not us, it's the mind.
Okay.
And Mataji, the thoughts come to our mind because of subtle and gross bodies, because of our karma, our own actions, correct?
It can be our karma, it can be our past life, it can be our past impressions, it can also be our consciousness.
So how to differentiate then? Like, if let's just say, like, for example, like somebody was supposed to give me some money, I let them borrow, and they say, okay, no, we don't have that money and we're not giving it to you. So automatically the mind I'll start thinking, oh, okay, I gave them this money and they said they'll give it back, but now they're not giving it back. So what I'm gonna do, why they did do this to me and all that. So how do we differentiate that this is either past karma or this is now?
No, whatever it may be, it is there in your mind, and you know that you are not the mind, and then immediately you use your intelligence. You control the mind by your intelligence, and immediately your next thought is what? But how does a devotee think? A devotee thinks that, okay, this person is not willing to pay me. Maybe I did not pay the person the previous lifetime. After all, who is in control? Who is the supreme controller? A devotee knows that Krishna is in control. So devotee says, okay, if something good is happening to me, that is Krishna's mercy. If something bad is happening to me, that is also Krishna's mercy. So again, your thoughts are coming to your mind, and then you use your intelligence and you think, okay, but how does a devotee think? The devotee knows that Krishna is in control. So you can make that switch. It's a constant thing throughout our lifetime. It goes on. It's not something that, okay, from such a date, it's going to stop. No, it is something that's constantly going to go on throughout our lifetime.
Okay, but that okay. So it's not me, it's the mind, and I have to control the mind in that time.
With your
So
intelligence,
with
yes.
my intelligence, that is Krishna's will. If there's something bad happen or something good, also is Krishna's will.
Yes, everything is Krishna's mercy. Yes.
Okay, okay.
Krishna has his ways. No, Krishna has his ways. Sometimes we may go through some anxiety, but that anxiety actually purifies us. There are so many examples. I'll give you one example. In our congregation only, there is one Mataji, and she is a disciple of His Holiness Bhakti Bhushan Maharaj. And he had told her, because she's single, she's not married, she doesn't have children, and she doesn't have responsibilities, no material responsibilities. And so, therefore, he told her that you should probably live closer to the temple. So, if you're closer to the temple, you can come and do so many services in the temple. But because she was living far away from the temple, it was the distance was something that would come in the way of her entering services. In an emergency situation, if somebody is sick or the pujari is sick and we need a replacement, if somebody is living close to the temple, it's much more easier. And if somebody has no responsibilities, then she can come. So her Guru Maharaj told her that probably you should consider living closer to the temple, so distance will not come in the way of you rendering services. So she was like, okay, I will try. And then she continued to live there, but in the house that was far away from the temple. But then one her house caught fire. Her house got completely burned down, and the circumstances forced her to shift to a new house. So now that she had to shift to a new house, she got an apartment right opposite the temple. So, so Krishna has his ways. And then I spoke to her after a few months, and then she told me that I'm so happy that now I'm living opposite the temple. There are so many things I can do, and it has turned to such an advantage for me to live opposite the temple. And burning that house was actually Krishna's blessing. Then, so later she got that realization that although that house was burned, it was Krishna's way to so sometimes we may go through some anxiety temporarily, but eventually it will be in our favor only.
Okay, Mataji, let me ask you one more question. Okay, so the example you just gave, so will this apply for someone who's not initiated, who doesn't have a guru as well, but is in practicing Krishna consciousness, or you have to be initiated and have guru, and only then Krishna will do such things in your life?
So see, this is something that, see, when we surrender to the Lord, then see, Krishna says that as you surrender unto me, I shall reward them accordingly. So you in your moment to moment choices, you see how surrendered you are to Krishna. But we surrender, the process of surrendering to Krishna is by surrendering to his servant, by surrendering to the bona fide spiritual master. We surrender to Krishna by surrendering to his guru. Now, sometimes one may not be initiated, but that depends on what is the reason that one is not initiated. Sometimes one may not want to accept initiation because one has some hesitance to surrender to a guru. Sometimes we think that, oh, why should I surrender to a living person, they may say. He's also a human being. So a lot depends on what is the reason that one is not yet initiated. If one has a circumstantial problems, let's say family conflict, or family is not supportive, or some other circumstances preventing one from taking initiation, Krishna understands exactly what is going on in your heart. So it all depends on what is your intention. And because Krishna knows, and we cannot cheat Krishna, right? He's right there in the heart. So it all depends on what is your intention. If you are surrendered to Krishna, but you're not yet surrendered to a guru, but you have the desire in your heart, Krishna will completely understand that, and he will take care of you.
Okay. Because I was trying to see, like, because I was in a car accident, and so I was trying. At that time, my thought process was very different. But later, the realization I got, because of that accident, I got to stay there in the temple longer. I got to be in the Govardhan puja. So that realization came later, that because of this, okay, it's a bad thing that happened, but because of this, all these good things happened that I might have not been a part of. So for that purpose, I was very, very happy. So anyway, okay, thank you so much.
Yes, yes. I'll give you one more example. I was hearing in another class, there was this person. He was the chief pujari of the temple for many years. Now, before he became a devotee, he was an expert surfer. He would love surfing on the seas, on the waves, and he was an expert surfer. Now he gave up all that surfing. He joined the temple, and then he took first, second initiation, and many years he served as a pujari in the temple. But sometimes we say no, that the old habits come back to us. So one day he thought that I want to go back to surfing. I feel like going back to my surfing and going back to those waters and doing what I'm so passionate about. No, so he gave up his services. He resigned from his duties as a pujari and he went back to surfing. Now, when he was surfing, he saw a crocodile nearing him very, very quickly at a very quick pace. And he is thinking that, he served for so many years before he became a devotee. Never he saw a crocodile in the waters. Never it has happened. But this crocodile was very quickly going towards him. Now, the pujari, he knows all the mantras, all the prayers. So, whatever mantras were coming to his mind, he started to recite all those mantras, all those prayers. And it so happened that the crocodile just walked past him, just went past him, in the waters, or swam across him and did not harm him. And then he came out of the waters, and then he realized that this is Krishna's way to get me back to my services. So Krishna, yes, put him in that anxiety situation by putting him right in front of the crocodile. But then Krishna has his ways to bring you back, isn't it? So that's why devotional service is like a transcendental mafia. You can get into it free will, but you cannot come out of it, because Krishna will bring you back. He will drag you back, and he has his ways. So we may go through some anxieties at some time, but ultimately it's for our own purification.
Yeah, but when one goes through the anxieties, and that time, it's really hard to, I mean, for me at least, from what I just went through, at that time to think of Krishna, or to be in this right state of mind and to take it the way you should take it and not, blame anybody. It's very, very difficult at that time. At that point of view, in that time. Exactly. It's very, very difficult. Not impossible, but it's difficult. But then again, after, as you said, practice.
Yes,
And then
abhyasa.
one day we can achieve.
Yes. So constant satatam, determination. Again, no, we have to have determination and faith. These two things are very, very important. Determination and faith.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, I have a question. If the distress is too much and it's for too long, then also you can move away from the Lord, right?
Yes, that's exactly what Krishna is going to say in chapter 7, that there are 4 categories of people who surrender to him. And there are 4 categories of people who never surrender to him. So one of the 4 categories of people who surrender to him are those who are distressed. So when one is distressed, one can surrender to Krishna. And and it also can happen the other way, as you said, when one is distressed, then one can lose faith and also walk away from Krishna. But if one has rendered at some point, even a little bit of devotional service, Krishna will bring you back. Somehow or the other, he will bring you back.
Okay. And my one question, you gave one example regarding that, if the son is lost from a rich dad or something, then he will forget that, okay, his dad was so and so. So sometimes when we are also lost or detached from the Lord, is the Lord is distressed too, that my son or my offsprings, they are so away from me?
Yes, he is even more distressed than us. He wants us back even more than we want to go back to him.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji.
You're welcome. Any more questions? Okay, so I have put up the chapter. Disha has put up the chapter 6, and now we have a new system, because throughout the 5 chapters that you all have submitted till today, not a single chapter has been submitted by all of you without a delay in the time period. So constantly, I understand that we are all busy, we have other obligations, and sometimes there are health issues, sometimes there are family issues, sometimes one is very busy in the work, whatever. So we are all, everybody, there is no exception. We all have we are all very busy in our own time. So I receive constant requests, give me an extension. I want to submit after 2 days or whatever it is. So I thought that it's not fair on those people who take the time out and submit on time, before the due date. So just to be fair to those people who are submitting on the due date, now I have one last question in the question paper with 8 marks. That one question is, are you submitting the exam by the due date? So if your answer is yes, so we will answer yes only if you are submitting by the due date. So you get 8 marks. In case you're submitting after the due date, yes, you can submit after due date as and when time permits, as and when circumstances permit. But those 8 marks you will have to sacrifice. Only because I want to respect those who are submitting on time. So to make it fair for those who are submitting on time, therefore now we have 8 marks. So one can get 100% only if you can submit on time. If you submit after time and even though all your marks are correct, you will not get 100% because then you will lose out on those 8 marks. So just wanted to inform you all. And I hope that you can all submit your papers on time and reap the full benefits. Okay, on that note, we will end today's session. Thank you all very much for joining. Vancha kalpa taruvyascha kripa sindhu vyayavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Grace and Mataji ki jai.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Dana pranam.
Thank
So
you,
much.
Sanam. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.